Welcome to the FBC Midlothian podcast. We hope today's message will speak to your heart and draw you closer to God. To find out more, visit us on the web at www.fbcmidlothian.org.
Come down to the river, come and let yourself in. Make good on a promise, never hurt again. If you're lost and lonely, you're broken down, bring all your trouble, come lay them down. All you sinners and weak at heart, all you helpless on the boulevard, wherever you are now, whatever evil you found, bring all your troubles, come lay them down. We're all tied to same old feelings, finding shelter, things we know. We're all dirty, like corrupted small town. We bring our troubles, and lay them down. All you rich men in the high above, and all of those with and without love, all you burdened and broken down, bring all your trouble, come lay them down. Come lay them down. Come lay them down. Come lay them down. Come on, you broken. Come on, you helpless. Bring all your burdens. Come lay 'em down. Come on, you burden. Come on, you helpless. Bring all your troubles. Come lay 'em down. Come lay 'em down. Come lay 'em down. Come lay 'em down.
It's great to know we can come before Him and lay down our burdens, our worst things, our hardest things, and know that He hears and He cares, and He takes them on upon Himself instead of just us. It's a good word. I came here in 2003, and when I did, I had a driving tour of the town, and it seemed like every time I went past a new subdivision, it had the word creek in it for some reason. So I finally popped off and asked Oliver Jackson, what is the deal with the creek names? And he said, well, it's really simple. You know, where there are creeks, there are trees. Where there are trees, there are people. And, you know, in Midlothian, a tree is a good thing to find. And I didn't really realize how true that was going to be until I got here and realized that there were tons of areas that were just bare and rocky soil, and then you'd find a creek and all the trees would be located on that. You could tell, in fact, as you get to the higher elevations of town, or if you ever fly over Midlothian, you can see where all the creeks are and where the richer soil is, because you'll have the trees just thick as anything. That's true today. It was true millennia ago when Abram and Lot were looking onto the land that was down by the Jordan. The Jordan, we think of Israel now, and we look at pictures that come in the news, and you see this rocky, kind of chalky stuff. Very rarely do you see something lush. But in the days when Abram was walking that land, the jungle was so thick, it was a regular habitat for bears and for lions. This is kind of lost on us. You could see it. You could see where the good land was and where the harder land was. And so it became a very strategic part of the world. It was a place where everybody wanted to be. And when you look down on that plain, you could see several cities on that plain because it was really important land. When you get to Genesis 14, you got a situation that arises in that place that really will give us something to think about today. There are 4 cities that kind of commanded that land. And they were the cities of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Goyim. And they would go to war from time to time. Every city was its own state, its own country. The king or the leader of that city operated his own fiefdom. And so they would jockey for possessions or control or whatever. You got in my territory, I'd get into your territory, that kind of thing. Well, at one time, the king of Goyim goes to battle with all these other kings. And there's a great battle, and the king of Goyim wins. And they haul off the families, they haul off the people with power, and they haul off all their stuff, their livestock, their possessions, and they are fleeing away for the safety of their own city. Abram really didn't care about the other stuff, but among all those that were taken away were his nephew Lot and his family and all their possessions. So Abram comes to the rescue, and he raises up his men, and they go after the king of Goyim. And God blesses them in it, and they absolutely rout them on the high plains. So they've defeated this one king. They got all that stuff. They got all their servants, all the people. They're coming back. And on their way back to that beautiful valley, they are met on the road by 2 people. One is the king of Sodom, who's lost family and possessions to this. And the other is a man named Melchizedek, who is the king of Salem. Salem was the ancient name for the city we know as Jerusalem. And he meets them on the highway. And these 2 respond to what Abram has done. And frankly, according to every commentator I could find, the contrast in these 2 is something we have to see, and something that can shape us today, millennia later. Abram's on the road. He sees Melchizedek and the king of Sodom, and that's where we find our scripture today in Genesis 14. We're going to start reading today in verse 18. It says this: Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought up bread and wine. He was priest of God Most High. He's what my wife commonly calls a God-fearer. He knows that the God of the universe is bigger than anything he's ever known elsewhere, and he worships from afar the one he's trying to know. He was priest of God Most High, and he blessed Abram, saying, Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and blessed be God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave 1/10 of everything. That's the Melchizedek story. Verse 21. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself. End of story. 2 very different people, 2 very different responses. Abram has just been minding his own business, and he sees all this happen, and he goes into that battle, and he's coming back, and this one man, Melchizedek, stops him, and he does something that Abram has been expecting. Melchizedek blesses Abram, and you see not only that, but God gets blessing from Melchizedek and from Abram. And then Abram winds up blessing God and Melchizedek. There's this picture of blessing. And he says for this reason, Abram is a man who had maybe 300 people, 300 men to command. And he takes on a whole city-state, a whole army himself with these men, and he defeats them. And Melchizedek says, God put these into your hand. This wasn't just you. And so he praises Abram for having the courage, but he praises God ultimately because God delivered that way. And Abram sees that. And Abram, this is interesting because when Abram was called by God, God said, I'm going to bless people who bless you, and I'm going to curse those who curse you. And here you have this person blessing Abram. And what does Abram do? He carves out 1/10 of everything that's part of the spoils of war, and he gives it to Melchizedek because he's ultimately giving it to God as a blessing back to him. It's thankful, appropriate, immediate. It's a good picture. Abram honors God with the spoils because the victor in this thing is really God, not Abram. The king of Sodom is standing right there. He's watching this whole thing. He's seeing and overhearing this same conversation. He hears, okay, God has been praised. This has happened. The king of Sodom does something completely different. Abram gets orders from this king. There's no thanks. There's no appropriate honor. It's just, okay, you keep the stuff, I'll take my people. Literally. There's no honor. He gives orders to it. Like, you're nothing to me. I picture this mob boss of Vegas coming up and saying, you're nothing. Take your stuff and get out of here. It's just completely devoid of any honor. There's no, hey, you rescued my family. I will always be grateful. There's none of that. It's okay. You won the battle. You get the goods. Give the people back to me. No recognition of God. Nothing. You know what's interesting? Abram knows this. He knows that this guy just wants to use him. This guy has an ulterior motive. There's no honor. There's no hope. There's nothing good out of this. And Abram calls it out for what it is. This is what he says. This is verse 22. Abram said to the king of Sodom, I've raised my hand to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and I've taken an oath. He's made a promise to God. And this is the promise. That I will accept nothing belonging to you, not a thread or a thong of a sandal, so that you will not be able to say, I made Abram rich. I'll accept nothing but what my men have eaten and the share that belongs to the men who went with me to Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them have their share. Abram isn't about to bite on this. He's not getting in there and saying, well, of course, I deserve this. He sees this. All that the king of Sodom is doing is creating a debt. It's going, I made you rich, therefore I get the credit. I have control over you. And Abram has been called by God, and nobody else will dictate to him what's going to happen. He will not take the credit that only God deserves. Abram knows. And he confronts this king and says, I don't want any of your stuff. Because frankly, he didn't do it for him. He only came for this because his nephew was involved. And he says, you're not going to put me in a corner where I take credit and I take the spoils of war, because that would imply that I think I'm it. No, you can have all your stuff. I never did it for you in the first place. I'm not taking credit for what is not mine. And I will not have you steal the credit that only God deserves, because he's the one that called me. He's the one that's going to bless me. See how different that is? Now, when you're looking at this going, okay, Bruce, this is thousands of years ago. What does that have to do with me? I think it points out, this contrast points out something that's really significant about us in human nature. And that is that we tend to blame God when life is painful, and we tend to take the credit when life is good. That's the natural tendency. We blame him when it's bad. We take credit when it's good. We have disease. God, why did you do this to me? But we get healing. A surgery goes well, and we thank the doctors. They get the praise. We're out of a job. We beg God, why did you do this to me? You took my livelihood. How can I struggle like this? We get a job and we thank our network. Hey, thanks for putting my name before people. It's as natural as can be. It's what we do. In fact, when we start looking at the good stuff, we start thinking about somebody's hard work. We think about their giftedness. We think about their good choices. We think about all those things, and we never realize that a majority of the things that we enjoy really are a gift. This morning, you woke up in a country, today, in a town, where you probably didn't worry about human trafficking in your neighborhood. Most of that is determined because you were born in America and you're in a small, safe town in Texas. But if you were one of billions, you would awaken and you would have checked on your kids to make sure they hadn't been taken in the night. You didn't worry, looking around the room and looking in the mirror, we didn't worry about what kind of meal we're going to have or if we're going to have a meal. It was, hey, how much meal will we have? How many choices do I have? We've got 18 boxes of cereal in the pantry. We've got Pop-Tarts. We've got eggs. We've got all this stuff. It's not, hey, will we eat today? It's what will we eat? And that makes you unique from billions who hope to have a meal. We have some partners that are serving in a country that is really, really tough for missionary work, and literally they will decide how much rice and only rice they and their team will eat. It's so natural to say, gosh, it's all us. Well, part of it is that you grew up in a place where you have so much opportunity. It's a completely unique situation in the world. You have great opportunities. You do great work because somebody invested in your education, gave you all these things. And Abram is in the same boat. He's looking at this and saying, this isn't me. I've tried to be faithful with what was entrusted to me, but this didn't happen because I'm a great warrior. I'm not. I'm a shepherd. I didn't go to school. I didn't learn all this modern warfare. I took my men because my nephew was in danger. That's it. He sees. It's not natural. It's unnatural to choose to honor the person who's made it possible. Abram turns that upside down. He says, no, in fact, I'm going to bless God in return. And so Abram's response is he looks at Melchizedek and he says, I'm going to give you a tenth of everything that I have seen come my way because of this battle. Now, this is really the basis of offering and giving and tithing. It's this symbolic picture. Now, today, we're not doing a campaign. I'm not asking you to do some kind of money emphasis or anything. It is what it is. So let me just talk about it when there's not some kind of special thing on the line. Maybe you can hear it. Every May, we have this deal called Mother's Day. And every single time, we get all up in a furor of making sure we do something to honor our moms and give them a gift. And it's because if we give them a good gift, we have paid them what they're due for what they've done for us. Right? Hey, Mom, I went to Eckerd's and I got this box of chocolates, so now we're even, right? That's how that works at your house, isn't it? I know that I must be the most loved person in the world because I have tons of black, brown socks and ties that I never wear. Because I'm a dad. And everything I've done is easily paid for. And I have trained my family that now being a dad is at least worth a Bass Pro Shop gift card. Because that repays me for working, all year. And that repays me for, trying to live a life of integrity for my family. And that repays me for discipline and allowance and all that stuff, right? No, we don't do that. We don't even think we're repaying. We wouldn't even imagine that it would come close. No, instead, we give a symbolic gift that says, I recognize you're a blessing to me. You never repay. See, there are not enough chocolates in the world that could repay the taxi service that many of you moms have rendered to your kids through the years. There aren't enough Bass Pro Shop points to buy the integrity of a dad who says to his daughters, I will fight hell itself for you. You can't buy that. And you can't pay a God who lays down the life of his son because you're powerless to deal with your own sin problem. There is no way to pay that. So instead, you give a gift of honor. That's the idea behind offering. A tenth, it's a symbol, it's a picture. God could have said 5%, it could have been this, it could have been 100. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's the heart that goes behind it. So when you turn to the New Testament, there is a completely different picture that says we're beyond just the legalism of it. It is that we have found joy in it because, God, you've given us so much. How could I not honor you with it? That's what Abram's doing here. And that's why when we do offering, nobody's coming over your shoulder and saying, hey, did you give your right amount? Nobody gets a bill. It's not about that. It's a symbolic act that you do. Just like you sing, not because you think you're a great singer, but because God deserves your praise and you give whatever you have in a voice to him. That's why you pray. You don't pray because, if I just cover my bases and recite enough things, then he'll look favorably on me. No, he already has looked with favor on you because he gave his son. You pray because he deserves your attention and your thanks. And he loves you and wants to hear from you. See how that changes things? Abram was looking at this whole thing and saying, I could not do this with 300 men. Not possible. So this is not my victory. God, this is yours. And so I give to this priest of yours a tenth as a symbol that I recognize who did this and where the goods come from. And I choose to be thankful and to praise the one who deserves it. See that? Now I want you to look at that in comparison to the king of Sodom who says, oh, you did pretty good work. Yeah, here's your due. It's night and day. And if you're going to make it personal this morning, I'm going to ask, which kind of living defines you? Are you one who looks at God and says, you know, you're darn lucky to have me, and I'll give you what I think is appropriate when I want to, and I'll come to worship, but I don't have to participate, and frankly, you know, you can have this part of my life and only that part? Or are you a person who, like Abram, says, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be alive. I wouldn't have the life I had if you and your providence hadn't given me to the parents I have in this culture, in this place. God, it's all yours. You find Jason Mann in the hallway and you ask him how he's doing, he's going to give you the Dave Ramsey answer, better than I deserve. And it really is a statement of theology. I don't have what I deserve. I have so much more. Sometimes we just don't know it. We don't realize what a gift we've been given. And we start living that way. I've been watching the news. The last few weeks have been just a furor over the introduction of the iPhone 5. Okay? And it's really interesting because you watch the news and you watch the advertisements and all those things, and it goes back and forth. And of course, Samsung is doing their thing, and the marketing is going back and forth. And basically, it's this creation of a dissatisfaction of what you have. You have to create a dissatisfaction so that you buy the new product. And so they push and push and push and push, and you watch it, and everybody starts saying, well, gosh, if I only have an iPhone, or if I only have this, or I only have that, gosh, I must be missing out, and my whole life would be changed if only I had an iPhone 5. So I ought to camp out all night and get the latest technology, because that will make me a great lover, a great specimen of human dignity. It'll make me intelligent and wise and hip and savvy, and all my life will be changed. Right? And we forget and we miss the blessing that's right at our fingertips. We've been talking as a family, looking back. We're doing some reflecting this last week, and Kelly reminded me of something that happened when we were new parents. I'd taken a job in College Station, and David was almost 2, I believe, when we found out that Brady was coming. And so we were expecting Brady, and Kelly's parents were overseas. They were missionaries in Indonesia for over 20 years. They spent their last decade in Singapore. And so after we shared the news, they said, well, we really wish you could come to Singapore while you still can travel. We'd love to see you and see David. He's growing up. We're not going to get back. We're not going to get to come back until the baby's born. Is there any way you could do that? And there was no way we could afford it. So Kelly's dad said, I'll pay for it. We just want to see our grandson. Okay, so here she was. She was at that time 3 months pregnant. David has just had his 2nd birthday, and Kelly flies all the way to Singapore, which is a 24-hour flight with layovers and everything. It's 24 hours with a 2-year-old on her lap. Now you think about, some of you have your kids with you today, and you're drawing and doing those things, and you're squirming, and you're doing that wonderful thing of teaching your kids to worship, and I love watching you do the wrestling while I'm talking to you. It's great fun. There's some probably very evil, sadistic pleasure that I get from that. But anyway. So she's wrestling a 2-year-old all the way over, and then coming back. She actually had an empty seat from time to time. On the way back, it's a full flight. I mean, packed, crowded. She's got a baby in her tummy, and she's got a baby on her tummy, and she's trying to fly 24 hours. She was supposed to be into Intercontinental Airport on a Saturday night at 7:30, and she was gone for like 2.5 weeks. I was scared to death David wouldn't even remember me. You know, it's that young parent thing. If I'm gone that long, it won't happen. And so I'm there, and in those days, in the old days, you could go right up to the gate And so when they came down the jetway, instead of waiting for them baggage and all that stuff, you're right there. And so I'm waiting, I'm eager, I'm looking for my little boy to come toddling out, my wife come out with this relieved exhaustion on her face, and this crowd comes past me, and I'm, hey, where are they? And then there's a lull, and then some more people come out, and then there's nothing, and nothing, and nothing. And I'm thinking, oh, I bet she had to change a diaper or something. And then I see flight attendants rolling their stuff toward me, and I'm going, this is not good. She's not on the plane. She's somewhere in the process of what was supposed to be a 24-hour flight overseas. And my family isn't on the plane. So I go up to the gate, and I say, ma'am, my wife was supposed to be on this flight. Can you tell me if she didn't make the flight? She's coming back from Singapore. She's pregnant. She has a 2-year-old on her lap. And she said, I'm sorry, sir, federal law prohibits us giving out any passenger information on the flight. I mean, you don't understand. It's my wife. She's coming back from Singapore. She has a 2-year-old on her stomach and a 3-month-old in her stomach. Do you understand? She says, sir, I can't tell you. Okay, what am I supposed to do? She says, you go home and see if she left a message. Home is 3 hours away. She may be on her way here now. Can't you check? I'm sorry, sir. Federal law prohibits us from giving out any passenger information. I said, sometimes the sin is not what you say, it's what you want to say. So I made a mad dash home, and I got to College Station in 2 hours and 15 minutes. I got home about midnight. By the time all this stuff has happened, it's midnight. There's no message on the phone. My wife is somewhere in the northern hemisphere of the world. That's all I know. 2 a.m. the phone rings. I'm in Omaha. Can any good thing come out of Omaha? What are you doing? She says, we were flying through Denver. It's spring break. I got bumped by a bunch of college students with skis. You're kidding me. You're in Omaha? Yeah, I'm coming in tomorrow. I'm out of money, and I'm out of diapers. It's a bad night. We were thinking back on that. She said, life would have been so different if we just had the most simple, basic cell phone in hand. You forget how blessed you are. And if it's true for cell phones, which, by the way, for centuries people lived without, how much more true is it for you when you get up in the morning and you don't have to wonder if you're going to eat? When you get up in the morning and you know you're free. You get up in the morning and you can walk into the bedroom of your children, or you can go throughout the house and there are no artillery shell holes in the structure. And you get out on the street without wondering if there's a sniper. And you come together and you get to give honor and due to a God who made all that possible by the simple fact of where He placed you on the whole planet. And you realize you really do have a choice. You can live as if it's all up to you and take all the credit and give Him nothing. Or you can open your eyes and see that God has given you an incredible gift. And you can live thankfully. It's not natural. It's just the best choice. So this morning, my prayer for you is a prayer Paul had for the Colossians. And he said this: and now, just as you accepted Christ Jesus as your Lord, you must continue to follow Him. Let your roots grow down into Him, and let your lives be built on Him. Then your faith will grow strong in the truth that you were taught, and you will overflow with thankfulness. That's the life I want. And it's the life I want for you. Would you pray with me? Father, when we know we are burdened, when we face problems, it is such a comfort to know that we can bring those burdens and lay them down before you. To know you care, that you're involved, that you're invested, that your power is available, and that you have good intentions toward us. God, when we are burdened, somehow we find that. Our hearts may grieve, they may struggle, but God, you continue to bring people alongside us to remind us that we're not alone in it. But Lord, when things are good, we seem to grow blind to what you've done. And today we want to make an unnatural choice to honor you and to live thankful lives. So that like Abram, we can give you your due, we can praise you, and find joy in the journey because we know you're with us and you love us. Father, some here today need to discover that giftedness. Life has been hard. There have been lots of pains. And many of those pains they've tried to carry on their own, and it's been exhausting. So God, give them freedom today to be able to lay those before you. But also we ask for all of us who are experiencing your goodness, that we would be able to see it wasn't just something we made or earned, but at the very root of it, it was gift from you. To help us today to discover the joy of that thankfulness, that we might live with confidence, that we might be able to live with joy. For to you belongs all the praise and all the glory. And today we choose to give it to you in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Thanks for joining us for today's podcast. To find out more, visit us at www.fbcmidlothian.org. FBC Midlothian, where we're transforming our community one changed life at a time.